Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience and welcome to the webinar titled Features of a World-Class Safety System, presented by Perficient's Dr. Rodney Lemery, who is the Director of Safety and Pharmacovigilance. My name is Eugene Stefanoff, and I'm the Marketing Manager for Perficient's Life Sciences practice. Before I turn it over to Rodney, I'd like to cover some basic housekeeping items and provide you with a brief overview of our company. So all of our participants on this call will be in listen-only mode. This means that everyone is on mute. You can submit questions to the speaker at any time today by typing them in the chat feature, which is located on the left side of your screen. Please do make sure you state your questions clearly, and keep in mind other webinar participants will not see your questions or comments. Your questions to the speaker will be anonymously addressed as time allows towards the end of the presentation. If you still have unanswered questions after the webinar or would like to request information about our services, feel free to use the contact information that will be provided to you at the end of the presentation. And you are also welcome to fill out the contact forms found on Perficient's website. Please note that today's webinar is being recorded and will be sent to you within several days, along with a link to the PDF version of the presentation. So now that we've covered the logistics of the webinar, let's move on to a quick overview of Perficient. As many of you know, Perficient is an IT consulting company that offers a whole host of IT solutions for a variety of industries, including, of course, life sciences, as well as financial services, consumer products, insurance, and a couple of others. We have employees and offices all over the world, including the locations you see on this slide. And as you may expect, most of our clients are based in North America and Europe. This slide here contains a bunch of facts. Just to point out a few, we were founded in 1997. We're a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ. And lastly, at the moment, we have a little over 2,500 employees. Perficient offers its clients a variety of types of business and technology solutions, from business process management and information management to content management systems and portals. We simply have a broad portfolio of solutions that we work with. The services we provide are what you would expect from an IT consulting company, essentially, and those are implementations, upgrades, cloud hosting, application support, project management, and so on. But when it comes to life sciences specific IT applications, we cover the data management and EDC space, safety and pharmacovigilance, clinical trial management, data warehousing, and analytics. And finally, Perficient has many different software partners, including, of course, Oracle, which is the maker of the safety solution that Rodney will be discussing today. All right, now that I've covered the housekeeping items, I'd now like to pass it over to Rodney.
Thank you, Eugene. So, good morning, everyone, or afternoon, depending on where you are. So like Eugene said, I plan to give you a high-level overview of the Oracle software that is responsible primarily for case management and some aspects of pharmacovigilance, mostly of product safety. So this will be a very high level of the Oracle Argus safety system. I plan to cover case entry, case reporting, in terms of individual case safety reporting and the submissions that it tracks, case management and some tools that the Argus solution gives you to accommodate your case management processes. I want to show you all some wonderful ad hoc reports that can be generated from the Argus safety solution. And then I also want to cover briefly the periodic reporting capabilities of the Argus tool. Before we start, though, what I think could be a very dry discussion of a piece of safety software, I thought I would tell you a brief story. 2 days ago, I received an email from a friend and longtime client asking if Argus, the name of the software, actually stood for something, if it was an acronym. And it in fact is not. And so I thought I'd start the presentation by telling you an interesting story from our Greek mythology background. So the story goes that there was a mortal lover of Zeus named Io, and Zeus's wife Hera, who was a terribly jealous woman or goddess, decided that she became very angry that Zeus had fallen for this mortal woman Io. And Zeus, fearing for Io's life, actually turned her into a heifer, hoping to shield her from Hera's jealous gaze. But Hera's really smart. If you've read any Greek mythology, she's a very keen goddess, and she knew of this deception. So she convinced Zeus that she would love to have the heifer as a present. And in her unrelenting request, Zeus finally gave in, gave the heifer over to Hera, and Hera decided that she would send the heifer away to a giant named Argus, Panopetes, which had eyes all over his body in order to keep an ever watchful eye on the heifer itself, Io, so that Zeus and Io could no longer be together. So in fact, the Argus safety system takes its name from Argus Panopetes in the hopes that we too will keep an ever vigilant watch over product safety for the various companies that we service with the software. So hopefully that introductory story will guide you through the what I hope not to be very dry slides about the Argus safety system itself. So keeping in mind that our job is to keep an ever vigilant watch, we're going to start out by looking at the case entry subsystem of the Argus safety software. And this aspect of the application is really where we go to what Argus refers to as bookend a case, which is the high-level data entry. Some companies, it's the data entry while the call center is on the phone. In other companies, it's the entry screen that is used after that call takes place in the post-marketing world. It is exclusively the data entry area where clinical trial SAE data may be added to the system manually. I'm only showing you here the manual mechanism of entering cases, but you should know that Argus allows for a variety of data entry, initial data entry solutions. So the manual entry mechanism gives you the bookend screen. This bookend screen does allow you to perform what the industry would refer to as a duplicate case search, because as all of you may be aware, it is possible to get additional information in weeks, months, even years after you took the initial phone call from a patient or a principal investigator on a clinical trial. So in order to search for that previous case so that we can update it with the new information, case safety systems need the capability of performing a duplicate search, as shown here in the slide. All of the information that you enter into the fields at this point would be utilized for the duplicate case searching. Once you've entered the new case into the system, you can begin formal case entry on the case itself. As you can see from this screen, the Argus system is segregated in tabular form So there are main tabs across the top of the screen, and each of those tabs will contain some higher level information about the data that you're entering. So for example, if we start on the General tab, this information is mostly the information about the case itself. Argus allows you to classify your cases into groupings and then use those groupings later on in ad hoc queries or reports. It also has a full capability of tracking all of the follow-up data. And of course, the primary reporter and also electronic reporting capabilities are accommodated through the reporter information section of the case entry screen. The Patients tab has a great deal of information on it regarding the subject of the case itself. We can do things like enter complete case histories for the subject. This might include historical conditions, procedures, both that have occurred in the past, for example, an appendectomy. It may have a list of historical medications or products that the patient was on. These are all of the aspects that are captured within the Patient tab, specifically under the Other Relevant History section. It's a very clever way of associating a great deal of information in a single case entry screen. On the Products tab, we have the ability to capture all of the product data itself. This includes the suspect, concomitant, and any treatment medications given to the patient. You can track all of the indications of use. Depending on the configuration of the system, this could be the default indication of use, but it also allows you to capture any off-label use that might occur for the study or suspect product in the marketing world. Down below in the dosing area of the Products tab, the dosing regimens can be clearly delineated for the products of interest. In this case, I'm just showing you how multiple dosing regimens could be captured, maybe for complex products like oncology therapeutics or cocktails like HIV antiretroviral meds or interferon infusions. So this type of multi-regimen dosing capture has proven very helpful for our clients utilizing this type of product in their research or marketing. The Events tab contains all of the details for the various events of interest in the case. This might be a disease state, it could be signs and symptoms. It really is up to the business to decide what is captured and what is entered here. Every case would have at least one event. Many times in our client base, there are multiple events within the case, and Argus accommodates that complexity. The events are coded against the Medra dictionary, and that comes with a built-in Medra browser, and the product data for concomitant therapies at least can be coded to the WHO drug dictionary using the WHO drug browser. Again, both of these browsers are built into the Argus safety system. And while they are rudimentary compared to the browsers that come with those dictionaries if you purchase them from the vendors directly, they are very effective, at least in my experience. So again, the Medra browser here and the WHO drug browser here really do accommodate most of the coding necessities within a product safety department. You can also reorder your events. Most drug safety teams that I've worked with have some type of rule within their department about ranking the events from highest to lowest on a variety of different scales, starting for the leftmost and going all the way to the rightmost. Argus has the built-in capability using submenus, as you see here on the screen, to pull open additional functionality. And this concept of right-clicking on the screen to get a submenu is very common in the Argus interface. Also on the Events tab, in the Event to Product Assessment subtab, you can see all of the causality, both reported and determined causality, as well as the individual listedness or labeledness, depending on your company rules, displayed at this level. And given your user permissions, you will be able to assess the local labeledness as well as the core listedness if you so desire. And again, this is a very nice and clear way of showing the product of interest and the event of interest and its relationship causality-wise in a single screen. I haven't talked about some configuration options, but let me just tell you that you can configure the system to automatically store and look up the various data sheets for each of these global licenses so that it takes a lot of the detailed work out of the hands of the drug safety specialists and allows them to rely on the computer system to do and perform that labeledness and listedness assessments themselves. The Analysis tab contains all of the higher level case summary data, which would be the case level seriousness, the case level causality assessment, and the case level listedness determination. All of those things are determined through a configuration setting as to whether or not you want them rolled up, and if you do want them rolled up, how specifically do you want to roll them. Additionally, on the Analysis tab, one of the very keen features of Argus is the ability to generate a narrative. The narratives are configured and stored in the database in the console setting, which is the administration setting of Argus, which is all from a front-end user interface, meaning that you do not necessarily need large amounts of IT knowledge to maintain that type of configuration. It's again, another key feature of the Argus safety system. As you can see here in this example, I have loaded one narrative into my demo site. When I select that narrative and replace the empty one that is here, you'll see that it has pulled in all of the data that I've entered into the case into a very nice, comprehensive narrative format. So it is quite possible to build an extremely comprehensive and complex narrative, as well as simplistic ones that then require some drug safety editing. It really just depends on your company's needs and your willingness to spend time to configure this auto narrative. The Activities tab have two main sections that most people will look at, the first being the contact records and the second being the action items. So the contact records of the system really are used to document either incoming or outgoing contacts regarding the case. Many times this is used to do what we call letter templates in the Argus safety system, which are a way to use the same placeholder language that is used in the narrative templates and allows you to build complex, rich text formatted documents that can then be emailed out or faxed if you're integrated with a fax system to destinations of interest. And that's a nice feature of the contact log, and we'll see that in a subsequent slide. The action items area allows you to assign various action items to different groups or individuals within your company. And this can then be used in what we refer to as work lists, which again, I will explain what those are in a moment. So here is an example of a letter template. When you click on the email icon after the letter is scheduled here, you'll get an actual rich text formatted letter that has actually pulled in the data from the case. So this is all information that would come from the various case itself. For the action items, you can put in the date that you create the action item, a very helpful due date, and then of course the completion date. And this way you can track how long it takes your staff to do certain tasks that are required of them. And again, that action item can actually be assigned to a particular user or to a group of users if you have configured your workflow in that fashion. One of the other aspects of the Argus Safety System is the Additional Information tab. In this tab, you are capable of attaching external documents directly to the case itself. What is nice about this is it will allow certain formats of files to be uploaded and stored directly in the database. I'm going to mention as a side note that you could alternatively integrate the Argus Safety System directly with a document management system, namely Documentum. And there are install instructions on exactly how to do that provided by Oracle. In this example, I'm attaching a functional MRI scan result to this case itself. When I select the file from my local desktop, it has attached itself to the case with a hyperlinked icon. If I click on that icon, it brings open a new window right alongside my case data so that I now can assess my case and also visually see the results of that attached file. So this is a really keen way of getting a single repository populated with all of the source documents from the original information captured. From the case entry point of view, the final tab is the Regulatory Reports tab, which is a fantastic tab, in my opinion, in the Argus Safety System. It's very well organized. It contains a filtering section at the top, and down below are the actual details of that filter. In this example, you can see that I have two pending reports, one to an agency called TEST and one to the FDA. And if I should focus my filter on the pending by destinations folder above, I will be able to see only those items that I'm looking at down below. So this is a way that your users can keep track of the various regulatory reports that they might be responsible for, or maybe they're looking at something and they don't want to see 50 different reports, 50 different destinations. They can use the upper block of information to really hone in on just the report that they would like to see. Notice here that we have a draft hyperlink right now. The final hyperlink becomes available once the case is locked, and both of those hyperlinks will display a PDF form of the report itself. Again, the report has pulled all of the data as entered in the case tables. Here I'm showing you the draft with the draft watermark, and then here the final hyperlink will generate the same report but no draft watermark. Once the final report has been generated, you are able, right from the regulatory report screen, if you so choose, to manage the tracking, approval, and submission of that individual case safety report right from this window. So here you can see the small drop-down that I'm showing you is in fact the predetermined and built-in workflow for the report review and approval cycle. Some of these steps are not necessary. depending on your work processes. Some of them are mandatory. So for example, a report must be approved before it can be submitted, but everything else is optional. Once I've moved the report from generated to approved, I'm able to move it one more step from approved to submitted. When I mark it as submitted, I get the submission information window to appear, and here I can type in notes as well as the submission date, and all of that information is then tracked within my regulatory report scheduling table so that I can clearly see when this report was generated and submitted last. I can also see the due date, so I know now whether or not I was on time or had a late submission. There are a number of individual case safety reports, paper-based reports, that are available within the system, and I'm listing all of them out here. And one of the reports that a lot of people question are the E2B. And I should just mention that as it is right now, the Argus safety system is compliant with E2B R2. I have heard that Argus 8.0 is scheduled for release very soon, likely within the next 2 to 3 months. And that release, which will be 8.0, is one of its major features is the compliance with the new E2B R3. So let's talk a bit now about case management. So we've looked at the case entry capabilities of Argus. Let's look at the case management pieces here. So once we have the case, most companies have some type of cyclical workflow which will dictate certain responsibilities for the management of the case data while the case is live and being reported on. That workflow is usually invoked within Argus using the forward and return buttons seen here. Each time you press one of those buttons, you are telling the system to route the case through the workflow, and you'll always get the case routing window open. Here you're able to see the default next step, but if you click on the icon here, you will, if you have permission to, and depending on your workflow configuration, you have the ability to move that case into a different arm of the workflow. Next slide. So here, for example, I'm just showing a very simple workflow. We start with our bookend, which is the default, let's call it a default workflow step within the system, followed by what I've configured to be case processing, followed by review, followed by reporting, and then finally another system capability of the Argus application called archiving or case close. So these things are not, bookend and archive are not necessarily formal workflow steps. The configured workflow steps are in the rectangular, rounded rectangular boxes. So again, invoking the workflow is done in the application by the users using the forward or return button. Once a case is routed forward or returned from a particular workflow step, it enters into what is called the new case work list. So this is the work list where all cases go each time they are transitioned along the workflow. They are transitioned into that new case work list with no assigned user, which means the case is ready for anyone in the company's eyes and hands to work on. So part of the business processes is to go into that work list new, right-click on a case of interest, and accept the case so that it then moves into my user's specific open case work list, so that I can now see all of the cases that I have agreed with my team members to keep track of and work on. These work lists are really nice, and in general, they keep everything very well organized in your department. So again, Work List New and Open has a very specific submenu that allows you to do certain things to the cases without ever having to open the case entry screen. Work List Action Items and Work List Reports do the same as well. So there are certain functionality differences between these various work lists, but all of them share the same intent, which is to keep your staff organized on particular tasks constrained within the concept of case management. For example, one of the submenus in the new case and open case work lists is the ability to open up the coding review screen. This is a review screen that allows a medical coder or a drug coder to go into a single screen and perform all of the required medical coding or drug coding that is outstanding for the data within that case. What is nice about this is if I were to open up the case entry screen, as we saw in the previous slides, I would have to go tab by tab by tab in order to locate all of the various data entry fields for coding that might need to be updated. But here in the coding review screen, I get all of them in one place, a very nice feature of Argus. Equally awesome in the Argus application is the medical review screen. This is a wonderful place for medical review personnel to go to see all of the required information for medical assessment in one physical window. In addition to the data entry fields being present in this window, there is a temporal view, if you look at the top of here in the temporal view tab, that shows you a very nice timeline of the case data and allows the medical reviewer to filter the information on certain things like events, diagnoses, signs and symptoms. Do I want to see the lab data? Do I want to see historical data? I can turn all of that on and off, and I can answer certain questions. For example, was the adverse event treatment emergent? And I'll be able to get a visual sense for when this patient was exposed to our product of interest and when they began to experience the event of interest. So I can start to answer certain medical or clinical judgments. There are also a number of preloaded dashboard reports and interactive screens that also aid in case management, and those are available through the dashboard subsystem. I'm going to just go through some of the key ones here. So first, we could get a list of all open cases and where they are in our various workflow. So this is what I'm showing you here. You could also get a quick signal report. This is a very favorite report of most of my clients, where you focus on a particular product, and into that product it will list out all of the 26 SOCs of MEDRA and all of the event terms that have come in over the last 6 months and for all cases, as well as the last 6 months for all cases and all products. So now you can compare basic frequencies between your product and all products and the last 6 months versus all of time to get a sense for whether or not you have a potential issue in one of the SOCs of MEDRA compared to all other products in your database. So again, not a wholeheartedly accurate construct of signal, but it is a very nice wide net to cast into your data, and again, it's built completely into the application with no configuration or customization required. You also have an expedited report display, which is a little dashboard that shows you a graphic of all of the expedited reports that are either due soon, which is within 4 days or less, where you have quite a bit of time, which is anything greater than 4 days to submit the report, and it will visually tell you anything that is past due. And what is really nice about this dashboard is that they are interactive. So if I double click on that red pie chart here, I'm going to be taken to a custom work list that will show me those 2 reports specifically that have missed their due date, and I can take care of those reports right then and there. A similar dashboard here will display the cases and the various workflow steps that the case has been in, and this is relying heavily on configuration of your workflow so that you tell the workflow your normal and maximum times that you expect people to remain in a particular workflow step. And so this can tell you if you're late in a particular workflow step, on time, or have plenty of time. And again, this is interactive just like our expedited reports were. From a more management side of house, you can get a line listing of the case workload here, and it can show you all of the people who have accepted cases, how many they've accepted, and you can get a better sense for where your work is distributed amongst your employees. So there are even some built-in dashboards that are helpful from an operational standpoint. So that's pretty much it for what I wanted to cover for case entry and case management. I now wanted to kind of move into an ad hoc reporting area of the system, and this I truly love for a safety system. I think it's amazing that Argus comes with an ad hoc reporting interactive screen for both listings and tabulations. And again, this is out of the box, no configuration, no customization. So let's take a look right now at what we refer to as the CDA report, or the Case Data Analysis Report. This is the report, the ad hoc report tool that you would utilize if you had someone or you yourself wanted to kind of generate a tabulation of data, so a table's worth of information. In this example, what I'm building is the typical adverse event by body system report that we would want to see in terms of product safety analysis. So you'll see that your rows and columns here for the resulting table are all distributed according to the data entry screens. So if you remember back from my earlier tabs, you see all those tabs along the top now are displayed as folders and subfolders within the selection area. Once I've populated the required information, I can click Generate or Print, and this will now show me a PDF rendering of the data itself. So here you can see my traditional AE by body system table. These pieces, while in the data option, I have the ability to export this to Excel. Also, I can display, memorize, or transmit this electronically to other people either within or outside of my company. I can also display the information in a chart form if I chose to. The key renders itself sometimes on top of the graphic itself. So sometimes these graphics, depending on the complexity of your data, may not display quite the way that we would want. But in this case, I had just the right amount of data in there so that the key is no longer obscuring the results, and it actually doesn't look too bad. The line listing report is very similar to the case data analysis report, except that this information is information that you want to display in a simple column row format, with the first column always being the case number. So here I can use my folder and subfolder organization of the case entry data to select from the left-hand side, move over to the right-hand side a variety of fields, and then physically display them in a PDF. So here, for example, is the AE reconciliation report. I did want to point out one major limitation in the line listing, though, from a practical standpoint. It will display duplicate rows even when you are anticipating that it does not. So for example, if I had a line listing and I wanted to display all serious events, and a given case had two events, one event that was serious and one that was non, both of those rows would display on my report, even if I tried to use advanced conditioning to restrict that data. And that is because the data always displays per case. So it will always show you all of the information that is present per case. But even with that limitation, I think the ad hoc reporting is an amazing feature of the Argus system. I did also just want to show you several screenshots for periodic reporting. These allow you the ability to create very robust listings and tabulations that are required for the various global periodic reports. In this example, I'm showing you how to generate an NDA pater. But I'm using the PSUR format. I should mention that I'm only showing the PSUR options here, but that's by far one of the more complicated periodic reports. So the same concept of how you select your products, how you focus the inclusion criteria, all of these things are repeated throughout the periodic reporting subsystem of Argus. So if you learn how to do this for the ICH PSUR, you should have no problem doing it for a DSUR or for the PATER. So in this example, the first tab is allowing us to focus on the agency that is receiving this data. The second tab allows us to focus on the product itself. Maybe we're doing this for a specific formulation or even a specific product within our active ingredient list. So we can focus the report on only those cases that contain those products. And then in the inclusion criteria, we focus the report further on the kinds of cases that we would be incorporating into the periodic report. So in this example, I've pulled in spontaneous and sponsored trial cases. And I'm not restricting it further in any other way. But there are lots of options for inclusion and exclusion criteria. I can even display particular AE events of special interest and have the report place a small icon next to those events of special interest. And that way the regulatory body has those special interest AEs already indicated on the various listings and tabulation section of the, in this case, PSUR. The line listing tab of the periodic report configuration allows me to pull in additional pieces of information that might not be part of the default format of the periodic report that I'm looking at, but I have the option of pulling in some additional data points. I can control the grouping and sorting of the information on the report. The summary tabulation in the ICH PSUR option contains the new PBRR information as well. This is specific to the version of Argus that you're on, but here I'm showing you Argus 703. Here you can see the PBRR options for table 6.2 and 6.3, which for the PBRR are actually emailed to you as Microsoft Excel tables when you actually generate and submit this. I can also pull in those listings and tabulations that I talked about earlier, those ad hoc tabulations and listings. So here, for example, I'm pulling in the AE by body system, and I'm actually basing it on all of the cases, not just the cases within this report. One thing that is new to Argus is the working of the report itself. All of that workload has been offset to the transactional server. This means that now our application server itself has processing time and speed freed up for it, so that now when I submit these large periodic reports, they are not being a burden on the resources of the Argus application itself, which is a very nice enhancement for the recent versions of Argus. You can draft these reports, and you can also mark them as final. When they are marked as final, what you will see inside the case data is every single case that is included in that periodic report will receive in the regulatory reports tab the entry of a periodic report, so that now you can see very clearly that this case was associated to a periodic report as well as the two expedited individual case safety reports that we saw previously. So I know I kind of went quickly through the overview. I'm hoping that you can see the benefits of some of the key features of the Argus application. It's a very sleek interface for rapid entry and management of the ICSR data. I really love the ad hoc listing and tabulation ability of the system, primarily because it really requires very little IT support from a drug safety standpoint. Most of the drug safety people I've worked with are fully capable of generating their own complicated listings and tabulations. The periodic reports, although they are not 100% comprehensive in terms of tables of contents and narratives around the information seen, they do have all of the required listings and tabulations that are used in the global periodic reports. And all of that really equates to a very easy way to build and track the submission of that information right within the application itself. And then, of course, the work list and the dashboards really give you quite a bit of freedom in managing your specific product safety team and all of the work associated to your case processing. So I thank you for listening, and now we'll go ahead and open it up to questions and answers.
Great, thank you, Rodney. So I just want to remind everybody that you can ask your questions in the chat feature, which is on the left side of your screen, and we'll answer as many as we can. Rodney, if you can follow along on the questions tab, that would be great. So the first question, and by the way, we may have to answer some of these questions throughout the presentation, but I will go ahead and ask them anyway. Does Argus have a BfArM report for med devices, or is this on a future roadmap?
So unfortunately, as I'm not Oracle, I can't speak to the roadmap. I just don't know what it is. I have not heard of the BfArM med device report being added to the future release, but that doesn't mean anything. It just means I have not asked and they have not said. I certainly could follow up with our contacts at Oracle just to see if that's on the horizon. It is not in there right now, but the EMA's med device report is part of the system. Unfortunately, it is an outdated form, but that is definitely in the Argus application.
Great, thank you. Next question is, what is your view on the impact of migration to E2B R3 on the data entry into the safety database? And what is the impact on the way we traditionally do the follow-up for the additional medical information and extra precautions to follow?
Oh, that's a big question. So from my understanding and vantage point, and maybe I'm missing something here, so please excuse me if I am. But from my vantage point, your method of performing the E2B generation and submissions and follow-up, I don't anticipate that would change at all with the R3. I do know that Oracle will be supporting both R2 and R3 in the upcoming release. So it is not as though you are mandated to move completely to R3. You will be able to, from what I gather and understand, you will be able to continue submitting R2 as well as R3. And a large part of that is because I think there are still agencies out there that will not quite be on the R3 capability path as soon as, let's say, 3 months from now. I don't know if I answered the question, but that's my stab at answering that.
Great, thank you. Do you use one dictionary install for Argus and clinical database?
So I'm not quite sure what that question is. So let me. I think I understand, but in the clinical space, normally all of the clinical information is stored in what we refer to as the clinical data management system, whatever that is. Might be Oracle Inform, it could be Medidata Rave, it doesn't matter what it is, it's a data management system. And that would have its own dictionary management solution around it. Argus is considered the safety management database, and it has a separate dictionary in it. Now, there are ways in the install and configuration of Argus to point Argus to a shared database, a shared data dictionary management solution. Natively out of the box, Argus integrates only to DS Navigator, but it is totally possible to integrate it to any dictionary management tool, and that would include an additional pointing to the, let's say, clinical database so that your dictionaries were synchronized between the two systems, which is, I think, where the question was going.
Okay, our next question is, with what you said about E2B R2 and R3, will you be able to, within one version of the application, be able to produce either report dependent on who can receive which version?
So I really don't want Oracle to get upset with me. So I think best here is that we get that answer directly from Oracle and send that out to everyone. But from what I understand for the release, you will indeed be able to do that because, again, there are agencies that are just simply not going to be ready for R3. So I don't think that it's an all or none. What I have seen and what I have heard from the various Oracle announcements, etc., for R2 and for R3 release, it very much was always the intent of allowing the flexibility within the system to pick and choose what format to generate for the E2B.
Okay, great. Rodney, if you don't mind reading the next question, I think it might be easier if you read it aloud and digest it yourself as well.
Just 1 minute.
Sure. I can read it as well if you'd like.
I think that one is highly technical. Let's keep that for. I can respond to that offline.
Okay. So at the moment we don't have any more questions. We'll give it another 30 seconds to see if we get anything else. Okay, it looks like we don't have any more questions. If you do come up with any more, feel free to contact us. You can reach us via the information that's on your screen right now, or you can fill out any of the forms on our website. We'll be sending the recording to you within several days, along with the PDF version of the presentation. Rodney and I would like to thank you very much for your participation and hope that the information he provided you with today was helpful. Our next webinar will be on HIPAA and its relationship to pharmacovigilance, so please feel free to register on our website. Again, thank you so much for joining, and have a great rest of the day and evening.